Dude, all right. Here is my latest thing. Samurais are trash. Okay? And maybe they were cool in Japan times, like before the Europe invaded and changed everything, but the romantic nature or like idea we have around them is nonsense. Like cuz businessmen will read the Bushido code
Right.
and talk about the honorable samurai.
Yeah.
But you realize that those dudes were just Paul Blart security guards
With swords?
for rice barons. That was all they were, right? They were just security guards. And so who needs to read the spiritual text of a Paul Blart security guard?
That is hilarious. So Samurai's whole thing, for those who aren't listening, is what you're saying is they were private security. They were basically a team that kept the rice barons' property safe and their money safe and kept them safe, right?
That's right. And then they created a code to be selfless and to basically sacrifice their lives to masters.
Which is so pathetic and cuckish for me.
Dude, to be a company man till the end. And then when your master dies, that you wander around like a spiritless ghost, a Ronin.
You're aimless.
Aimless.
Wow, that's so funny because the whole concept of going down like with the ship literally exists on cruise ships and yachts and whatever it is. If you're the captain of one of these vessels, you're supposed to go down with the ship. You're not supposed to jump off until everyone's off.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Like imagining like a like a Disney cruise ship in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And all of the captains are Greek on these ships for some reason. There is like a racial hierarchy or national hierarchy to different professions on the ships. So like if you're below deck, it's a lot of Filipinos are below deck.
Really?
And you have like a lot of like Latin Americans as well. But the captain and like his first mate and crew are all named like Stavros.
I love it. But dude, think about that. Think about that concept. Exactly what you said. You're on a Disney cruise in the Mediterranean. The thing is going down. I'd be the first one off that thing. I remember there was a ship that sunk off the coast of Italy, and the captain was watching it sink from like a nearby thing. And they got video of him, and they were like, "Tisk, tisk." He didn't go down in the ship. I'm like, if there isn't enough cake at an office party, I might quit the company.
Yeah, I'm out early.
Yeah, I'm out.
I'm the first one to leave your Zoom goodbye party.
Hell yeah.
When the boss is like last day, they force you to have a Zoom party at 9 a.m.
Yeah. It's like, I'm out.
Yeah. Peace.
I'm there just so they see my name pop up when I join.
Uh-huh.
And then when there's more than 8 people, there's like 12 people, I'm off.
Yeah. Do you leave the avatar on and like stay online but mute yourself during the party?
Oh, dude, that one's great. Yeah. You just mute and turn camera off. It just says your name and it shows your photo. Yeah, that's how I am. I'm never going down to the damn ship.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Halal Cartels. This is a classic one. No guests, just your two boys on the couch. It's
it's a classic one, and this time we have subject matter that's really going to appeal to you if you're on the spectrum.
Oh my God. It's me, Gabe Pacheco.
And it's me, Samir Nassim.
And okay, here's something I've been thinking about. So when I was a real estate agent, we would have in at least 70% of the buildings, there was a clause that said no pets, right? So you couldn't have pets. It wasn't even that you could have, like you could pay a fee for pets. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And as somebody who's allergic, I shouldn't be on this page. But, one of my lovers, my primary lover, she has a cat. And I've like grown to love animals now, especially this one cat. It's a little black cat named Lucy. She's delight. But I've been thinking about how through evolution, we have grown in a symbiotic relationship and evolved with animals. So like it is part of our mental well-being and part of our health. Like to be healthy, we have to have them in our biome. So the idea of any landlord telling you that you can't have a pet is a form of oppressive segregation. It separates you from nature and part of your humanity.
You know what's wild is the reason they say that too is because a few, people who are irresponsible pet owners are like, I'll just never clean my cat's litter box, and then it'll start shitting in the cabinets and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, that's a form of animal abuse.
Hell yeah, because cats need a clean litter box. It's psychologically tormenting to them to not shit in a litter box. Like they don't want to shit elsewhere. And so when they do, it's basically a sign of them struggling.
Yeah, so I'm ACAB unless we want to create a like pet SWAT team division that goes in and brutally tranquilizes offensive pet owners that are not cleaning their cat's kitty litter out.
Hell yeah.
So if you're bad at taking care of cats, we can send dudes with predator nets to capture you and take you away.
And then make you use a filthy litter box.
That's right. And then the cat gets to be the primary tenant on the lease.
I love it. And the
I don't
money
even
that
like
you
cats.
would use to pay rent.
But I'm like drifting closer and closer into being a vegan.
I'm not going to lie. It's ruthless when people mistreat animals because they made the choice to have the animals too. It's like they didn't have to have them at all. It wasn't like the animal was foisted upon them. They had the animal only to be lazy and mistreat it. And so what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Because I was like, and part of this stemmed from a couple different things, but I was on an airplane watching, and I watch documentaries on airplanes, and one of the documentaries was on allergies, like where do allergies come from? And allergies are really your immune system being paranoid or overactive or anxious, right? Because like your body attacks itself when you have allergies. And one theory is that people have become disconnected from farm animals. So the Amish community in the US specifically has like 2% of their population has allergies, whereas the population is at like 20%. And it's because the theory is because their house is directly next to their barn, the kids from like being infants, like soft-skulled little infants, are just like sucking on goat titties,
Right?
And, like rubbing their raw naked bodies against like burros and horses, and
Yeah,
like
so that exposure is there, right?
eating
off the bat.
just pig feces right out of the trough.
Pig feces.
And so a theory is like, if you want to have humans be healthy, you gotta like let them kind of roll around in this animal filth.
And then they get diseases that jump from animals to humans.
But and hence this is where monkeypox and HIV come from.
Yeah, straight up.
But maybe not with like rainforest animals or exotic creatures, but the ones that we've been in contact with for millennia, and the one that we've domesticated, but also that are gonna be in our lives. Like I can't go to medieval times
Because the horses.
without wheezing from horses. But what if I'd grown up at a very young age and been introduced to them in like a farm like setting? Because we can't erase that like genetic history and evolutionary history we have with these creatures.
Yeah, totally.
So when allergies first were like being written about in European medical texts, they were seen as rich people or city people ailments, because everyone in the countryside, like no one in the countryside knew what an allergy was. It was only people who had started to become divorced from like animals and from agriculture
That began to have those issues.
Yeah.
Wow. So it happens pretty quickly.
Right.
I mean, right now we're going through the allergy thing where we have early allergy introduction kits for the kids.
Oh, are you doing that with Ren and Stimpy? I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want
Ren
to
and
get.
Stimpy.
I don't want to drop. I don't know if we've dropped their real names on the show.
Yeah, no. So Ren and Stimpy, yeah, they're getting that stuff, and it's small little packets that we put in their milk.
Mm-hmm.
And so also the other thing we're doing is peanut stuff. So like we've been slathering on a little bit of peanut butter onto their food.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been the importance of that is to get them used to it. Part of it is like they don't have to eat peanut butter when they grow up or anything, but it's just so all over the place. And obviously you know that.
Yeah.
That it worries me. So it's like just to prevent that and like the egg allergy, things like that, because they're in everything, and you yourself know it's really tough having a kid who has those allergies and not being worried all the time that somebody like that lady on your street that gave you that pine nut cookie that just like almost killed you.
Absolutely. So I've been a thing. There's so many different varieties of allergies, right? There's the food ones, but then there's also the animal ones, and then there's the environmental ones. But when it comes to animals specifically, one theory is that if they actually had mini zoos or mini farms in schools, so from pre-K on,
Yeah.
you just have like some little piglets, not just the class pet like the guinea pig, but
Right.
you actually have an outdoor space where the kids are just constantly around,
The animals and interacting
yeah,
with
just
them.
cow manure, just putting their fists in it, you know.
Like India.
Yeah, yeah, they would.
Making little patties with it to burn. They do that in India.
Yeah, dude, exactly.
It's so fucked.
And then you burn it, and then it creates a little what is it? A little system to generate electricity to charge your phone.
Yeah. That's real.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, they just burn it a lot for heat and then they're cooking with that, which is odd.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's flames that are coming off of dried shit.
Hell yeah, aromatic doo-doo patties.
Yeah.
Yo, what is it? What do you use? What are you guys burning? Mesquite? What type of barbecue is this? Mmm.
Wow, this chicken tastes really horrible. What is that? What kind of briquettes are these?
Oh man, yeah, doo-doo patties at the Pollo Loco.
It's so gross. There's just entire walls covered in drying out doo-doo patties. I'm serious.
Yeah, man. So that's great that they're getting introduced to little micro packets of peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
And in Europe, they do this already with some kids that have the allergies. And if I had been born in a Northern European city, I would have probably had that therapy presented to me. But it is incredibly expensive for kids who have a peanut allergy to get this treatment, because the treatment's like you're microdosing peanuts every day through your childhood for like a year straight. And if you
Wow.
miss a day, you're
It
like,
just reverts?
yeah, because you
Wow.
have to keep acclimating your system. And then the other thing too is the first couple days that you do it, you have to do it in a hospital, because you have to have all of the treatments ready in case you go into anaphylactic shock.
Right.
So imagine now, like you taking your child, or like the United States healthcare system, for most people, like the idea of you taking your child and putting them in a hospital voluntarily, and with the idea that maybe there'll be a health crisis. Like nobody wants, we don't have a system set up for like
Right.
the average person to get emergency health care right away if they need it
Right.
for something voluntary. like I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try these M&Ms and see what happens.
I'm gonna need you all on standby.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a room of surgeons, and yeah, I mean,
Totally, it's like shooting up heroin and having the Narcan, but also being at the John Hopkins Hospital while you're doing it.
But you have people on standby. They're like, we should be helping that guy over there who's bleeding out
Yeah.
in the waiting room. You're like, I'm sorry, maybe you can attend to them after I do this heroin.
Yeah.
Well,
So, but you know, if we had more doctors, if we had a preventative healthcare system, that is, allergies could be obsolete.
Yeah.
We could cure them with treatments like that.
Yeah, because allergies are the body just reacting to the allergen and basically turning on itself.
Bro, how about here's another one for you. So there was a scientist in Grenada, this woman in Grenada who works with plants, and there is something called botanical sexism. You're laughing.
No,
It's
I believe
hilarious.
it. There's
It's
something that I know that exists about botanical sexism. But go ahead.
oh, right, because it's probably
Weed.
dealing with weed.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, if you're into fucking it's like you know, drug dealers know about the metric system. Well, weed dealers know about botanical sexism.
Absolutely.
So hopefully, for anybody out there that isn't growing their weed yet, I'll hip you to this. With botanical sexism, in terms of allergies, a lot of boulevards, they will line the streets with trees, but they line the streets with male trees because male trees don't bear fruit. So they're not as messy to clean up
Right.
like the streets with. But because they're male trees, they're just like splurting pollen all day long. And it's
Yes.
like pollen money shots. And because there's no lady trees around and they're competing with other male trees, they're like, oh, I got to get more pollen out. So it's like elevating and exacerbating their competition with one another. So the streets are just full of like creamy male tree
So
semen.
yeah, so they're just eating those internet web pills that get advertised to people.
Yeah, they're
And they're just
squirting
nutting
ropes.
like ropes.
Just nutting ropes. Of
Wow, that's
pollen.
horrible. So that probably is leading to an increase in people's horrible allergies, like kicking
Yeah,
off.
because there's nowhere for this pollen to go. And the woman proposed that there be gardens that are all female plants because the female plants don't have pollen. They're just like dropping luscious fruits everywhere.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the allergies that I have faced seasonally have increasingly got worse over the past decade. And I definitely think it has something to do with global warming. I think there has to be something that changed atmospherically and with the amount of pollen that plants are producing, because I never had these issues until a decade ago. Now, New York, in the past 5 years has just turned so vicious on me with allergy season.
Yeah.
I get them so bad that I can't see because my eyes are just pouring water. My nose is just running like crazy. My throat is,
yeah.
yeah, and I'm struggling to breathe. It's horrible. And no allergy pill can really shut it down. It might mute the symptoms like 20%, but it still makes life unbearable.
Yeah. Yeah. You know who has allergies? Samurais have allergies to thinking for themselves.
That's a great callback. Yeah, I think it's so a lot of people don't even know the distinction between a samurai and a ninja, where like a ninja is a hired assassin or a hired
Yeah.
bad boy that like
Sure. A freelancer.
a freelancer that a hired gun, yeah, or a hired sword, if you will.
Yeah.
And
a
they just
cell
go through
sword.
and do like savage things, and then samurais try and ward off ninjas.
Yeah. But they don't do the same practice. Ninjas do the practice where you jump over a tree your whole life, but you plant a seed and then the sapling grows. And every day they hop over the sapling as it grows taller and taller. And by incrementally having to practice jumping over it as it grows, they learn how to hop over walls.
That's insane. Is that true?
And into ladies' hearts.
Yeah, and into ladies' hearts.
Yeah.
They're also supposed to be undetectable, so you're not supposed to see them. They're supposed to just be stealth assassins. And so that whole hopping over the tree thing would make like sense, yeah.
So one of my fantasies is to go to a tracking school in New Jersey, like a survivalist school, run by someone who is appropriating Native American traditions. And learn I think that there's anyway, I'll figure out the name later of the guy, but he wrote a book called Way of the Scout. And he has a school like that. And one of the tests is learning how to walk between the blinks, walk in the gaps. So deer, their heads are swivel and their eyes are on the sides of their head.
Right.
So like his idea is that you want to walk between their blinks and between their swivels so that they don't see you, so that you're invisible to them.
Right.
And then the ultimate goal is to walk up behind a deer and smack it on its haunches and then run away and be like, see, I could have killed you, but I didn't.
And this guy
I
does
could have
that?
snatched your breath, you deer.
Is this guy chasing that ultimate goal, or does he also actually do this?
It's Dan Brown. That's his name.
Really?
Yeah, he's a total flim-flam artist.
Oh, so he finished writing the Da Vinci Code and then started this camp?
Yeah. I'm going to look up the name specifically, but I believe it's Dan Brown.
So
The Way
you
of the
discovered
Scout.
this guy. He is appropriating Native American culture, and he's doing
Yes.
the tracking school. Amazing. Well, they were amazing trackers too, because they didn't have the kinds of things that we have now.
It was Tom Brown Jr.,
Tom Brown,
not
Jr.
Dan Brown. Dan Brown is Da Vinci Code. You're correct.
Dan Brown.
Tom Brown. Yeah. No, I think, well, if you live your whole life in the woods, and I see this, like when I go out to Wyoming, you definitely feel like nature opens up to you and unravels if you just stand in one spot without saying anything and just kind of meditating. Like you'll start to see tracks and you'll be like, "Oh, those are deer tracks from 3 days ago. Oh, look at that pile of poop. The way that the poop was in a pile
Right.
rather than like distributed along a trail. You're like, oh, something freaked that deer out right there and then
And
because it
it's
was
shit
like,
Skittles.
yeah, because that's what happens when they're freaked out. They drop everything and then run.
Like a bag of M&Ms.
Yeah, exactly. They make a little poop pyramid, and then you got to take some of those home with you and feed them to your children to make sure
To
that
make
they're
sure that they're not allergic to deer.
yeah.
You're like, look, we want you to not be allergic to deer, but don't go anywhere near them because the likelihood is they're going to uh, give you ticks.
They're gonna
They're
give
get
you-
Lyme disease, and that's like having allergies all the time.
Or Rocky Mountain spotted fever if you're on the west side of the Rockies. Or the deer are a permanent reservoir for COVID. So, so even if we eradicated it in humans, it would come back to us through interacting with deer.
There you go.
Like if you hit a deer on the Taconic, and then you get out of your
You're
car
like,
to
are
like,
you okay, little buddy?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, do not get out of your car.
if you try to revive that deer that you hit,
You think you're powder?
you'll just end up with powder COVID.
Yeah, I love like diseases leaping from animals to human beings. None of the
Mhm.
good ones, though.
Sure.
Are there any good diseases? I got
No.
this disease. I'm just way more intelligent right now. I'm thinking on a new level.
I think we wouldn't call it a disease. I think you'd call it like a superpower.
Yeah, superpower.
Sure. That's basically what happened when Peter Parker got bit by the spider.
Right. There you go. We just
Positive.
roundabout.
Yeah. Positive zoonosis.
Yeah, instead of Peter Parker going completely bald, which is what would happen if you got radioactive spider bite, you would lose all your hair and probably get cancer or something.
Yeah.
You'd lose your hair, but it would probably kill whatever cells and you'd deteriorate.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to hold superhero books to account. Look, this comic book is completely off balance. This is not what would happen.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to find a way to like kind of whitewash the fact that we dropped 2 bombs on Japan and irradiated 2 cities
They're like,
by being like, we're in the atomic age now. How about that?
yeah. Was it really a nuclear holocaust or was it us giving everyone superpowers there? And some people just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. Oh, we also dropped bombs in New Mexico.
Right.
So there's irradiated swaths of the U.S. And it's crazy. I remember, I think somebody like my grandma's age was telling me that this was like when I was in middle school, that back in the day they would have boxes where you could put your foot in the box to check your shoe size. And it was just like a mini x-ray. So people were just blasting themselves with radioactive waves to check out their foot size.
Stop.
Instead
You're
of
like,
just
you can just take a piece of paper and take a pencil and just
yeah, dude, you could take a piece of string
yeah.
and cut it, and instead we Rube Goldberg these really intricate, ecologically devastating and cancer-causing solutions to problems like what size Air Max do you need?
Like, by the way, you're definitely getting cancer now. You're a size 9. Dude, it's so insane to hear that. Actually, you mentioned something about New Mexico and the nuclear bomb. So they were testing those out there so much and so frequently. And they were testing it in the area of Roswell, New Mexico. And so that whole Roswell incident, that has become a huge, immediately became a big mockery, was actually really interesting because when they talk about UAP or unidentified flying objects,
Thank you for describing it, because I am like totally a layman when it comes to
it's really interesting.
flying saucer talk.
Yeah, so flying saucers used to be called unidentified flying objects, right? That there was a reason for those semantics. The government purposely wanted people to call them UFOs because it meant that they weren't alien spaceships or something like that. It just meant you didn't know what they were yet because you saw them from afar and there's an obvious explanation. Oh, it was a weather balloon. It was a flares. It was a plane, whatever. And so when credible evidence of these existing began to get released at a slow pace, they began to change the terminology and they started calling them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena,
Right.
right? So it's like, oh, this is just a phenomena. Like, what could it be? We'll have to figure it out. But maybe it's just something physics can explain. And it was just a light that somehow, physics
Yeah.
could inevitably explain. But that's what's going on right now. So they're being called that. And then they're trying to change them again, change the name of them again. I don't even know what the new one is going to be. But
Is it going to be UAPXs?
no, you know what it is? Unidentified aerial threats, UAT.
UAT.
Right. And so
Which makes it more aggressive.
yeah. And the reason they're calling it that actually is because these unidentified aerial phenomena have gone and hovered around warships that have nuclear power on them. And then there have been cases, reported by the Navy where these things are hovering around for days on end, right? So they'll just like hover around. Then someone will be like, all right, what the fuck is that? They'll scramble some jets and they'll take off. Then the next day they'll be right there. But they rolled up to one of these warships once and turned off all of the nukes on the ship. And so then, more and more stories come out from military people where there's just a hotbed of this kind of activity around nuclear weapons. And so the whole Roswell, New Mexico thing is interesting because they were testing nukes there. And whatever these UAPs are drawn to nuclear power. And when the Roswell, New Mexico thing happened, they had military there almost immediately. And the military said, oh, there was debris scattered for several, like 10 football fields worth of, debris having been scattered. And there was some sort of accident, that this thing crashed or whatever. The debatable thing is, were there beings inside of it, and a lot of people say there weren't, whatever. But there was debris recovered that's, as thin as tinfoil, but you couldn't bend it with anything. And so it was just foreign debris. But what they did was they immediately, all the military personnel that were there were told to shut their mouth about it and just toe the line that it was a weather balloon.
Sure.
And I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they look like tinfoil and they're super tall or whatever and skinny. And they just go up into the atmosphere and they're for the purposes of telling the weather and what have you. Anyway, so now over the past few years, there's just been this whole disclosure thing where it started with Hillary Clinton when she was running for president. She went on Jimmy Kimmel and was like, the first thing I'm going to do is fight for disclosure about what is really happening with UFOs.
Wow.
Yeah, which was wild to me. I was like, what? And Bill Clinton said a similar thing, and, he was president. And then they tried to ask him, like, just be straight with us. Is there alien life? Are there UFOs? And he all but confirmed it.
He's like, hey, I was sitting next to a little alien on the Lolita Express.
He's like, why do you think we're going to Epstein's Island? We were fucking like little aliens.
Yeah, no, they were not underage children. They were grays. They were very mature grays. They just happened to be small.
Oh my God.
So, it's kind of like in E.T. when E.T. dresses up like a little girl. That's what it was like on the plane. It wasn't children.
Exactly.
It was aliens.
They looked like children.
This was part of their year abroad, exchange program.
They were 18. They were 18 years old and they were going to study.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just really fascinating what's going on right now. Basically, last week in Congress, they straight up said that, we need to start a new group that studies this because we now have UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, that a certain percentage, excuse me, of them are advanced technology. But they are made by human beings. And then there are certain ones that we can say for certain have not been made by human beings. So who the fuck made them, So they essentially admitted in Congress that they know that there are other beings that aren't human beings that have extremely advanced next level technologies. And nobody said, I don't even think I saw anyone talk about this. It was like on Motherboard. It was on the different, science websites and whatever it may be. And there were articles about it, but nobody gave a shit because everyone was thinking about Harry Styles and Jason Sudeikis and shit. And that's the world that we live in, right? Like we had a movie called E.T. that was a massive blockbuster. That was, I mean, we talked about this on Whole Cartels actually about a year ago.
Yeah.
About the premise of that movie not even being about the aliens and it being about Steven Spielberg being estranged from his dad and like his parents getting a divorce. You remember that?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an earlier episode of Hall Cartels. You can look into that. But yeah, so we had that blockbuster movie, which everyone can universally say it was about like what happens when alien contact happens, between a kid and like a friendly alien or
Yeah,
whatever.
I thought it was a metaphor for Jesus.
Yeah, and how E.T. loved Reese's Pieces because it tasted like cum from his home planet.
Yeah, that's another thing that we definitely brought up. I think Spielberg actually said that in an interview.
Yeah, he was like, well, that was why we use Reese's Pieces. It was the closest thing we could get to alien cum. But yeah, it just fascinates me that the collective consciousness is about, random TikTok dances and celebrity culture. And they're all but just outright saying, hey, there's aliens who made spaceships that we could never fucking compete with.
Well, if aliens come down, if this is a thing, dude, I give up right away. It's a wrap.
Yeah,
I'm like,
let's try to fight them.
Yeah, I'm like, we can't get more than $10,000 in debt. Like, we can't imagine a world where we can give more debt relief than that to to people that went to college and have like $100,000 loan debts that aren't even the principal, but are just the interest rates. So if we can't imagine a world without that, then how could we imagine a world where we could compete with with ALFs,
Exactly.
alien life forms?
Yeah, that's the other thing is like, what are they? So where I was going to go with this is there's a few theories actually. One of the theories is that they aren't intergalactic aliens or any of that. They're actually us way, way, way evolved in the future coming back to warn ourselves in the past.
Sure.
Then the other thing is they're
So a bunch of
interdimensional.
Marty McFlys
Yes.
being like, I need to make sure that you guys make out at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. And don't wear a condom. Make sure it's raw because we need to be we need our great grandfathers to be born.
Exactly. And that's it. They're like preaching their no condom sex, raw dog only stuff. But also there's this concept of maybe it's interdimensional and these ships or whatever things are tearing through the fabric of our dimension. And so they'll just pop in out of nowhere. I mean, there's a video of one of them just like fucking hurling at Earth at ungodly speeds. And then it just pops into the water and it skips in and out of the water like a stone and then just pieces out at like 30 fucking million miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, well, that's possible because that could just be from a different dimension. And then it could have just popped into the other like dimension or something. But who knows? The obvious thing is, I don't know. They keep saying there's like a trillion planets out there.
Mm-hmm.
So why on Earth would this place be the only place to have intelligent beings?
Absolutely. Well, intelligent is
Yeah.
we're doing all right, but 100%, I believe that there is, a high probability of life everywhere.
Yeah.
Life finds a way. But
For sure.
how difficult would it be for them to get here? I personally don't care about space travel at all because I'm like, we have so much to worry about here.
Yeah.
That space travel is like a fantasy for rich people who want to continue to like burn through the resources here under this promise that there's another place for resource extraction. So it is like an extension of sort of like colonialism.
Yeah, it's like the cokeheads who don't want the party to end and keep calling the dealer
Yes.
at the end of the night to bring a bag to after party.
So that's not to say that the aliens coming here is that, but for us to take a step towards them in any way or to take a step towards space exploration is like it is missing the point of like our us being stewards of this space that we have.
100%.
It's like, well, it's like being a bad parent almost. Like I had a bunch of kids here, but who cares about that? There's always like another fertile person to go have babies with later.
It's also the flip side of the coin of, okay, so we're destroying this planet. A lot of these idiots think, well, I'm going to be dead anyways when the shit hits the fan. So what does it matter?
Yeah.
But those are the same people who are like, let's do space travel so we can exploit this resources of this place, shit it into like a time bomb, and then just flee to another place to begin the process of destroying that one and just hop around into, Jeff Bezos is like absolute. So Chris O'Coin, who listens to this, shout out to Chris O'Coin. He edited the front line about Jeff Bezos, and it opens
Yeah.
with Bezos talking about his plans for civilization in space. And he is just no joke talking about having these self-contained biodome type things that are floating in outer space and people are living in them. And he's just talking about it as though it's a current reality.
Yeah, dude. They just want to have like gated communities on meteorites. It's
Yeah, that's what
it's
he wants. Yeah.
totally weird. I mean, watched Elysium recently.
Yeah.
Love that movie. It was really good. And it took me a while to get like I didn't watch it when it first came out because I was like, I don't need to see an action movie with Matt Damon like dressed as a cyborg.
Right.
But it's actually great.
It's like Halo.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And but the idea of the wealthy people kind of escaping Earth
Yeah.
and living in a gated community in the stars and having the Earth just be this never-ending shanty town. And that is what we have now along like what would be the Mango Belt. That's what's going to happen. That is what the third world is. And all of the resources being extracted from the third world and kind of given to the first world and those people in fenced gated communities protected by mall cops by modern day blart samurais.
That exists everywhere where they're thieving too.
Yeah,
Right. Because then you have classism and you have people in a place where the majority are completely broke and desperate.
it's a settler colonial futurism is what it is.
Yep.
It's like, how can we put these settlements? It's the logical extension of like that idea of separating from humanity and setting up your own little gated enclave somewhere else.
Right. And they're never going to be alive to see it. That's what I think is.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen for hundreds of years, most likely.
And it's like easier to spend your time in your mind castle thinking about writing sci-fi fan fiction than it is to stare at any of the problems that you're creating on Earth and try to solve those problems.
Right. It's the concept of like, well, look, this is beyond repair, so let's look for the new.
Yeah. And by saying something's beyond repair is also to absolve yourself of the guilt of your own agency in creating the problems here.
Sure. Your contribution to that.
Yo, shout outs to Gaddafi in Libya. I've been thinking about that guy again. I was just on, just scrolling through TikTok and looking at these TikToks and checking out like the man's eternal drip.
Amazing, Steve.
And honestly, if you got drip, I'm gonna check out the rest of your oeuvre. I'm gonna go back and check out your bio if you're a well-dressed dictator.
His was out of control.
Yeah, man. And I was just going back and thinking back to like, well, what is Libya today? So Libya today is this failed state, and it is an open air slave market. And also there's so many refugees coming from Libya and drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, right? Like, so what caused this crisis where we had like a country that we thought was being liberated by NATO when they assassinated him.
Right.
Look what happened. What were the results of our intervention? And it's like, more chaos. So then
Like absolute.
going back and being like, well, okay, who was this dude? And it's like some really cool things about life under Gaddafi were that it was totally socialized medicine and completely socialized education. So free education for everybody,
Yeah.
free healthcare, and people when they got married, they got like $50,000 from him.
In order to set up their house.
Yes.
And establish their life.
Yeah. So
And then they had like business. If you wanted to start a business, they would kick it off with some sort of startup capital.
like a Pell Grant.
A Pell Grant.
Yeah. So it's funny that he got such a bad rep in the news, Western press for so long, but looking at what he did with the money, which was pretty much petrol dollars, right? Libya is one of the world's number one providers of oil.
Yeah.
And in contrast to a place like Saudi Arabia, where they are a number one provider of oil as well, Saudi Arabia created this like incredibly stratified society with a tiny theocratic oligarchy.
Yep.
And they're just and they are like a main proponent of like Islamic jihad nonsense around the world, whereas Gaddafi also had all of this petrol wealth and instead distributed it more equally among the people.
Yep.
And created what was it? He created the Great Man-Made River to get water from the parts of the country where there was water
To
like
the barren and desert like
yeah.
areas.
So he had like great works projects, spent his money on flamboyant clothing, so much cooler than any Saudi Arabian prince.
Hell yeah.
And then also created more equality for women in the country. So women were able to go to college. Women were part of his Praetorian Guard. You know, he was out here making moves, and throughout all of that, I feel like he got a bad rap.
Yeah, he did say something like, everyone in this country is going to have a house, and until they do, I'm living in a tent with my mom. And right?
Yeah, he did.
The thing is, so there was this whole thing where they leveraged the concept of the humanitarian crisis in the country to be on some active regime change shit, where they're like, we got to change regimes there because things aren't going well for these people. There's just a massacre and people are being killed out there and yada yada. And those figures, I guess, have been revised consistently.
They just keep getting
Yeah,
lower
smaller
and
and
lower and lower.
smaller.
They're like, Gaddafi killed 100,000 of his own people. Okay, it was 50,000. Okay,
and
it was
they're like,
10.
It was 10. And
Yeah.
then like, all right, it was 1,300. And you're like, that's how many people get killed by the cops in like the Northeast quarterly.
Yeah, totally. That's how many people died from the water that we poisoned in Flint.
Yeah.
That's how many people died in a hurricane, in Hurricane Katrina, where we just like abandoned the poor people of the city
Yeah.
and left them to drown.
It's really interesting. And then Hillary Clinton had a huge, obvious, connection to Gaddafi getting taken out. And I guess, so a few things about Hillary Clinton is she's supposed to be very, very foul-mouthed.
Okay.
Yeah, behind the scenes, like
I like that.
Some of the like Secret Service people were like, she is just like swears like a sailor, and is just like a very disagreeable, mean-spirited person. you know?
Okay. Spiteful.
Yeah. And I
Maybe
guess
she has Tourette's, dude. We shouldn't. She could have been our first neurodivergent.
we didn't kill Gaddafi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there's a whole story about how she said something like, he came, he saw, he is dead.
Yes.
Or some stupid rhyme like that.
Yeah, she was very
That
happy
was
with
not
his,
the rhyme.
Yeah, very happy with his death. I guess, I don't know if it's a conspiracy, but it was released in her emails that he was one of the reasons the State Department was going after him was because he was trying to set up his own currency.
Yeah, Central African, right?
Yeah.
And it was backed by resources.
Yeah, so it would be backed by Libya's money and wealth, and they froze. I don't know who when I say they, but let's say like the World Bank. They froze his assets,
Mhm.
which is something that we just did with Afghanistan as well.
Yep.
So right after the Taliban retook Afghanistan, we froze their bank assets. So how could they possibly reform anything if they don't have any money to make any positive changes?
Exactly.
And the same thing with Libya. It's like Gaddafi was going to separate himself from like the IMF and the austerity measures that would be put in place on that country
Right.
and set up his own independent monetary system. And that is
A threat.
Yeah, and maybe that was, I guess, what these emails suggest is that's the reason that he had to go at that moment.
Even introducing that concept to a person like, or just to this country, on a smaller level, it means that other countries could imagine being part of that or doing that or slowly thwarting that system. And so that's what they really wanted to get rid of him for, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because they're like, don't even fucking think about it.
Because honestly, there was a moment where he was, and if you watch the Adam Curtis documentary, the most recent one, he talks a lot about how Gaddafi's the perception of him in the media changed so many times. Like it kept shifting almost like a Rubik's Cube being turned because depending on what we needed, we either made him a hero or we made him a villain.
Yep.
And there was a moment after 9/11 where I think Bush was talking about weapons of mass destruction and Gaddafi came out and was like, hey, man, bring your inspectors in. No big deal. We don't have any. And was one of the first Arab leaders to just open his doors and be like, I am not a threat.
Right.
And so you see that like even when you play along with the West, it doesn't matter. You'll never be their ally.
It's on like such bullshit terms.
Yes.
Exactly. Like you're reminding me of Saddam Hussein and how Bush was just like hanging out with him and shaking hands with him depending on what he needed. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's a whole going theory that he was a CIA operative that went wrong.
Oh, sure. Well,
Like Manuel Noriega style.
yeah, he was he was allied with the US, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we sold Iraq weapons to
Oh, yeah.
fight against Iran. And James Baker
Oh, yeah.
was there shaking hands with Saddam
Oh, yeah.
before the invasion of Kuwait. So
Exactly.
He was our boy.
Yeah, he was the homie.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, him and his kids are murdering rapist psychopaths that torture their own people.
Sure. We love to say that. The minute that there's a problem, we we throw in some sexual violence that
Yeah.
these people are committing, and that then creates the emotional response where they become irrefutably evil.
Yeah, and they go like, you know, he wasn't doing that when we were over there eating hummus with him.
Right. Right. So wait, so what you're saying is that you were like the homie with these rapists for 20 years.
Yeah.
But the minute that they invade Kuwait, like, oh shit, now they're
the rapists.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
we don't do business with rapists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Larry Summers, who was on the Lolita Express.
Was he?
Yeah, man. He was out there on Little St. James
Everyone was out there.
partying. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we could make a list of more people's names, but anytime you hear a leader say anything you don't like, you can just check and see if they were on the Lolita Express.
Yeah, and they were probably.
Yeah. Bill Gates, what's up?
He loved that spot.
I know. That's why his wife divorced him.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, this is irreconcilable.
Yeah, I cannot go anywhere without people saying like your husband fucked kids on
Yeah.
Lolita Island.
And Bill's like, no, me and Gates didn't fuck kids. They were grays. They were fully matured grays.
The spaceship landed. Grays came out. They were fully matured. They were wearing the ET wig.
Mm-hmm. They all signed NDAs and gave full consent.
That NDA is like so unenforceable. Hey, now I know you're not legally allowed to sign a contract because you're 16, but sign this NDA. Oh.
I've been reading a little bit. You've been reading any books?
Oh yeah, I've been reading comedy drama. I'm not far enough in it yet, but that's the new Bob Odenkirk book.
We love Bob.
Yeah, I've read some of his other stuff. There was a book called A Load of Hooey.
Yeah.
They had like some scripts and different things that they worked on that got completely dismissed. One thing I will say about all of it is the guy has a really amazing spirit. He sounds really cool of a person. He's a pretty lovable guy, but he talks about these breaks where I'm getting into it in the book now, but he talks about how a lot of things that happened to him throughout the course of his career, he didn't realize that there was a break when it was happening. And then there's a lot of shit where he was heartbroken over something that, they teased him and like pulled him along, like, hey, we're going to make this, we're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, it's not happening. And like, so he talks about how those things were actually putting him in the right direction, but he couldn't see it. And the general idea of it is you just have to keep getting up every day and doing what you really love and believing in what you want to believe in and fighting for what you really want to make and what kind of art you want to create and develop in this world. And good things will happen, as long as you keep doing it consistently and put in the effort.
You got to show up every day.
Yeah. And you have to also just believe in your projects that you really want to make happen. And if they don't sometimes happen, it's because something bigger and better is going to happen with another project that you have in mind.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
I just finished Harvest of Empire.
Yeah.
Which is the Juan Gonzalez History of Latinos in the U.S. And, I listen to Juan all the time on Democracy Now!
Yeah.
So I can't get enough of him. And there's way too much to take away from the book. But one thing that I really thought about was that we don't teach languages very well in the U.S. Like, this is a country where if you're an immigrant, you're kind of like encouraged to forget your like birth language or your parents' language, or our parents constantly like try to get us to assimilate by only speaking English.
Yes.
Spanish, along with Cajun and all the Native American languages and dialects, are not immigrant languages. They are like indigenous to the U.S. even before the U.S. became the U.S., right? Because the French were here first in the Acadian French in particularly now in Louisiana. But then also Spanish was like the language from Florida all the way through the Southwest. And so, and then all the native languages. So
Right.
those should all be like fiercely defended and embraced in a multicultural view of the United States.
100%.
And for me, it's like I want to learn how to survive in as many different languages as possible. And like, I love the movie Training Day.
Yeah.
And there's one scene in Training Day that blows me away where like Denzel Washington's character is like, haha, got to get your street IQ up. And he's like chasing Snoop Dogg in his wheelchair through a Korean nail salon. And he's just like starts like rattling off some Korean at the lady. And I was like, hell yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
he speaks Spanish. He speaks Korean.
Exactly. He goes to barrio and he's like chatting up people in Spanish.
Yeah. And it's like, you got to be, if you want to be like an excellent human being, you should learn more languages.
100%.
Become fluent in how to communicate with humanity.
Agreed. Yeah, and certain native words and phrases and stuff are so interesting because it's reflective of the way they saw the world too.
Hell yeah.
So, like two-spirit people, for example, are called two-spirit.
Double mint gum.
Yeah, double mint gum.
Two-spirit. Yeah, exactly. Which is like a cool way to shift out of the framework that we have now between like gay or straight,
Right.
or
Binary.
binaries, right? To have both spirits inside of you. I think about that with like polyamory. There's like one view where you can say, oh, this is my primary partner, this is my secondary partner, or maybe you could say, we have a horizontal relationships with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But another way to look at it would even be to look at it in a solar analogy, where you're like, oh, this person is my sun, who I revolve around all the time. But I also have satellites,
Yeah.
which are those people that are like
Other planets and stuff.
Yeah. And then you might have a comet relationship, where a comet is someone who is always traveling, but like continues to return into your life maybe after several years. But it's a frequent, but it's not like consistent.
Right.
And the older you get, man, I mean, if you keep good relationships with people, you're going to have comets.
And then a meteor is someone who gives you the clap.
Yeah, they came into your life like a wrecking ball and left you itchy. So watch out for them monkeypox meteorites.
I love that.
Well, friends, this has been another episode of Halal Cartels. And we love everybody that's been listening. Shout outs to Natasha. Thank you for the lovely texts. I hear you. I see you. And for anybody who wants to show us some love, one of the best ways you can do it is to take a screenshot of yourself and send us that screenshot in an IG story. Tag Samir Mon and tag Gabe Pack 1 in the IG story of you listening to the podcast. Also, you can share clips.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be putting out more video clips soon, so you have some assets to share with your friends. We love the review. The easiest thing you can do is in voice note on notes.
Yeah.
Just auto dictate your feedback, and it will print it out. Then copy and paste that into the Apple Podcasts. You don't even have to type it. Just auto dictate it. Come on. The future's now, baby. We're not going to space. but make this planet and our podcast better, because you have the power to do that.
All right. We'll see you next time on Halal Cartels.
Yep. All right. Peace.